Disney World abandoned the resort for 10 years. This is the story of Pop Century Resort. This is going to be a longer video, but I promise it's worth it. Right around the year 2000, Disney announced they were going to build their second value resort because the All-Stars were such a big success. This new resort was going to be called Pop Century and would highlight history from the year 1900 to 1990. So they were going to build it in two phases, and phase one was the classic years, which was 1950s to 1990s. And the other half would be the legendary years, 1900 to 1940. They started construction, almost completely finished the classic years, 1950s to 90s, and then started the 1900 to 1940s. Then 9/11 hit, there was a huge drop in tourism, so construction halted completely. At this point, Disney had finished 50 years of the century. That included the 1950s, 1960s, 1970s, 1980s, and the 1990s. They also had finished the front entrance, including the classic hall, so they went ahead and opened this side. But the legendary years only had 2 of the buildings built and then the front entrance, and they didn't do anything for 10 years. And the resort just sat abandoned across the lake, which meant that guests walking on the walkways would see the abandoned resort in the morning, and they could go across the bridge halfway and then just hit a wall. 10 years later, they would finally continue construction. As I said, they had the main hall built and then 2 buildings. But they decided not to complete the second half of Pop Century. Instead, they decided to build Art of Animation using this space. The abandoned Legendary Hall became the front of Art of Animation, and the abandoned buildings became the Little Mermaid Suites. This is why the Little Mermaid Suites are the only ones to have the exterior walkways, because they were reused, and the rest of the buildings have indoor walkways. So that's the story of Pop Century and why it's only 50 years.